Hi, my name is Natalie, and today I'm going to be talking about Lacie in Pandora Hearts. Special thanks to Ryan, who left a comment asking for this video. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to share my thoughts about Lacie with you. Before I can say literally anything else in this video, I have to put a spoiler warning right now. Pandora Hearts is, as I've always said, a tricky subject to talk about, because it's very hard not to spoil things by accident. There are a lot of things that happen that are connected to other events that you wouldn't think would spoil the story, but actually does. It's one of the hardest things to not spoil. The topic of Lacie is probably one of the most key roots to Pandora Hearts, and in saying that, I can't say anything more about the topic without putting the spoiler warning. If you have not read all of Pandora Hearts, or at least gotten to about chapter 60, you won't understand this video, and you will be spoiled as soon as I end the spoiler warning. I want to make this very clear because you probably are thinking, if you've read the beginning of Pandora Hearts, that you know what Lacie is. And I can't really say that you do. It's a very complicated topic in Pandora Hearts, and it's kind of the key to the story. So I'm warning you now, please, if you haven't at least gotten to chapter 60, I would prefer if you had finished, but at least chapter 60, don't continue watching this video unless you want to be super spoiled or have the story ruined for you. This is your warning now. I have warned you. You have been forewarned. Now we can go into the video. Now that that's out of the way, I can finally describe what I'm talking about here. This is a character analysis video! Yay! The reason I couldn't say that before the spoiler warning is because at the beginning of Pandora Hearts, you don't know that Lacie is a character. All you know is that she's a song, and even then, you don't really know that either. You kind of find out throughout the story that Lacie is a character, and that she is pretty much the core of this story. And I didn't want to spoil that for anybody who hasn't gotten to chapter 60, because chapter 60 is where you find out basically that Lacie is a character and that Jack is not who you think he is, and that's kind of like the big turnaround moment of Pandora Hearts. Now, there are a few other turnaround moments around chapter 90, but chapter 60 is kind of the big shift, and I needed to put that warning out there because I couldn't say this was a character analysis video if people don't know that it's a character, and hence, Lacie is a character that literally moves the entire plot along. For those who are here and know that Lacie is a character, you'll know that Lacie is a child of misfortune, and basically what her life entails is she has to be thrown into the abyss as a sacrifice because she's not supposed to be born, she's supposed to be dead, she's not supposed to exist, she's essentially in Pandora Hearts' version of the devil. And that's not, I don't think, true to her character at all, but for the sake of the story, that's what needs to happen, is that she needs to be thrown into the abyss as a sacrifice. And her sacrifice sets the turning point of everything in the story. Many people who read Pandora Hearts kind of overlook Lacie. She's that character that the whole story revolves around, but nobody notices, and I feel like that's not fair to her. In fact, thinking about Lacie, it's very hard for me not to cry, like, almost immediately. She is truly amazing, and I hope in this video that I can help convince you that she is the sun, the stars, and literally everything that is good in this world. A lot of the reason that people overlook Lacie is because of Jack. Jack was basically the cause of the tragedy of Sablier, which is the biggest mystery in Pandora Hearts. Basically, Sablier was when a town, a capital called Sablier, fell into the abyss. Now, there was another character that was blamed for this, Glenn Baskerville, who we also know as Oswald near the end of the story. He was blamed for it because the Baskervilles were seen as people who did these terrible things, and they were kind of a corrupt house, and also the Glenns were responsible for chains. Now, that is a lot to throw into one sentence, but if you've read Pandora Hearts, hopefully this should make some semblance of sense. If it doesn't, I'm going to try and unpack it right now. Basically, chains are what hold the world together and make sure that it does not fall into the abyss. The Glenn's responsibility is to succumb and basically own 5 different chains, and they're all bird chains, all named after different types of birds. And these bird chains are supposed to secure the world and make sure it doesn't fall into the abyss. And the world and the abyss are separated, and the abyss has the ability to basically, take what it wants. And that goes a lot into Jack's character, which is not that important for this video since we're talking about Lacie, but understanding the dynamic of the chains and of the Glenns is extremely important to understanding this tragedy. Because basically in the tragedy, Jack created a chain that could destroy other chains. So a being that could control and destroy these things that are holding the world together. And what happened is that Sablier, the city, fell into the abyss, and everybody who was there died. Everybody was killed. And the only known survivor was Jack Vesalius. And this is important to know because the reason that Jack did this was for Lacie. And the reason that he created this character, this chain that's called Bee Rabbit or Blood Rabbit, was so that way he could bring the world to Lacie. That's what he was trying to do. And a lot of people see that and they're like, Jack is the main driving force in this story because he was bringing the world to Lacie. He's the one who caused the tragedy of Sablier, and Sablier is where everything got confused and where everything is trying to be fixed, and why all these characters can't remember who they are because they were all present in some way or another, and you don't really find out about Sablier until the ending, which I'm sorry if I said chapter 60, but I said I prefer if you read the whole thing, because at the end, that's where Sablier is kind of all explained and kind of all fixed. And everybody kind of thinks, oh, Jack is the driving force of this story because he did all of this, and he's the reason that Sablier fell, and he's the reason that Bee Rabbit was created, and he's the reason that basically all of this happened. But everybody has to remember, he did it for a reason. He did it for Lacie. Let's talk about Lacie's beginnings for a minute. Lacie has a brother named Oswald, and the two of them were kind of orphans, and they didn't really have anything. And then they were taken in by this man named Levi. Levi was the previous Glenn. The title of Glenn is passed on from person to person to person, so there are multiple Glenns. Throughout the entirety of Pandora Hearts, we see 3 different Glenns. We see Levi, Oswald, and then Leo, and it's passed on, that title, and the 5 chains that I was talking about before. So Lacie and her brother Oswald were taken in by Levi, and Levi, the reason that he took them in was because he realized that Oswald was going to be the next Glenn, and so he was preparing Oswald to be the next Glenn. And this is seen a bunch of times throughout the series, is that 2 siblings are taken in by someone else, and then one of them becomes a Glenn. This also happens with Gil and his brother, and Gil is prepared to be made the next Glenn, but then he doesn't become the next Glenn. But he and his brother Vincent were both taken to be part of this process. So usually it's a sibling duo that are taken as this process of one becoming the next Glenn, so the person that holds the world together but the chains, and then one is usually a child of misfortune, which is very interesting. So this happens with Lacie. She is a child of misfortune. And this also happens with Vincent, who is also a child of misfortune. So what the Glen's responsibility to do is to become the next Glen, take on the title, and then throw their sibling into the abyss. This is what their responsibility is when they're chosen as the next Glen. And these sibling duos, one of them is chosen to be a Glen, to have this great responsibility, and the other one has to be thrown by their sibling into the abyss. What a terrible life to have. I feel like I would be amiss if I didn't talk about Oswald in this video along with Lacie. The power that he must have to be able to handle becoming a Glen, and a good one at that. And then also the pain that he must have felt of throwing Lacie into the abyss is just amazing. And anybody who does not appreciate Oswald at this moment, who does not appreciate him as a Glen, I'm sorry that you don't see him this way, and I hope in the future to make a video about him because he's amazing. But the fact that he had to throw Lacie into the abyss, that is her life. She is brought up knowing that one day she's going to be thrown into the abyss, and that's going to be her end. Like, that's her death, basically. Of course, when you're thrown into the abyss, it doesn't exactly mean that you die. You just kind of become one with the abyss. It's very hard to explain the exact process of it, but we know that she was basically taken by chains and that she was pulled into a light. Now, this is Lacie's life. This is the way that she lives and what she knows, and she basically accepts it. And she says that while she's on Earth, she's going to do as much as she can to be good. And that is what she tries to do. And unfortunately, on her journey, she meets someone named Jack. And at this point, he is homeless, very poor, very dirty, wanting to give up on the world. And he's also very young. At this point, Lacie is still younger, and she knows that this is going to happen to her. She knows what her brother is preparing her for, but she doesn't want to just leave the earth without knowing that she's done some good. And I feel like that's something that we need to know about Lacie's character. She needs to do something good before she leaves. She always tries to do good. She is a good person. And this is reflected through multiple of her actions of what she tries to do and how she tries to make the world a better place. And basically what she does is she goes into town a bunch of times and she finds people who are misled or mistrodden and tries to help them. So she might, buy them some food or give them something of hers to make them feel better or to give them a jump start back into life if they feel like they're giving up. And that's what she does to Jack. She finds him sitting outside all cold. She gets him a meal. She cuts his hair for him because it's all dirty and terrible. And then she spends the day with him and tries to respect him. And when she leaves him, she gives him some of her earrings so that way he can have them to remember her, and basically says, I'm leaving you here now. I hope you're okay. I'm going away. And here's some suggestions of things you can do. Now, the suggestions that she gives him are very interesting and a little bit messed up, but we're not going to talk about those things because Lacie, she has a very playful mind. She tries to make everything out of life that she can, and she really tries to have some fun with life, and I feel like some of her comments shouldn't be taken literally. Some of her comments should just be taken as, I'm trying to mess around with you here because I need to enjoy my time on Earth while I can, and I need to be, silly and funny. Think of it as like someone with a chronic illness that knows they're going to die. They say funny things to try and make themselves feel better, but also try and lighten the mood with other people, and also kind of hide how scared they might be inside. And I feel like this is what Lacie does. She deflects things, kind of doesn't let anything get to her, and she's very much a very strong character, and I do very much love her. The problem with this whole Jack nonsense is that Jack becomes obsessed with her, and it's really terrible. I kind of love and hate Jack at the same time. I love him because he did have it hard, and he did very much love Lacie. I hate him because of all of the terrible things he did, and if he hadn't done any of those stuff, none of this would have happened. Of course, we wouldn't have Pandora Hearts then, and I would be really sad because it's amazing. But all of these terrible things could have been avoided. Like, Sablier just messed with the whole story, and it completely messed up. But yeah, he became obsessed with her. So think, you are a girl, and suddenly a guy is obsessed with you, comes to your home, and then you tell him, oh yeah, I'm gonna die. What is this guy who's obsessed with you going to do? Like, just imagine, you were a girl, and this guy is obsessed with you. Like, and she still, through all of this, is so strong. She's not like, she doesn't find it bothersome that he's chasing her and doing all these, she like is kind to him, polite, you know, shows her his power, obviously. Like, she has incredible power. She shows him how much power she has, and it does scare him a little bit. But mostly he still is obsessed with her. So here you have a young girl who's obsessed with her and knows she's going to die. Like, that is a lot to be handling on a plate, but Lacie handles it so well. And she even handles it while her brother is trying to figure out how he's actually going to throw his sister, who he loves, into the abyss. So she's got all of this crazy stuff floating around her, and she still just handles it with such grace. And I feel like that's another thing about Lacie. She has this amazing grace. You know that song, Amazing Grace? That's Lacie. She very much knows how to handle the world and to see the most beauty of it. And speaking of beauty, there's one big thing about Lacie we need to talk about. This one big thing is, of course, Lacie's view of the world. Lacie says that she sees this beautiful golden light and that she misses the world when she's going to leave it, that she doesn't want to leave this beautiful earth. Now, of course, this is interpreted differently by a bunch of different characters, and eventually we find out exactly what she means. But she keeps saying that she doesn't want to leave the world, that she's sad to leave the world because she sees all the beauty in it. Let's unpack the first meaning. Lacie sees the world as beautiful because she has limited time on it, and she knows how precious time is. She doesn't know the exact day that she's going to be thrown into the abyss, but she knows that it will be at some point, and she knows that she won't be super old when it happens, that she'll still be young, and this gives her a very limited timeline, and so she sees the world as a beautiful place. And she sees all the goodness that the world can be. It also means that she sees all the bad things of the world and finds good in them. And this is how you can interpret her situation with Jack, is that she sees that there is a boy there, and she knows that homelessness is bad, and she knows that you know, being on the streets is a terrible thing. But she also sees the beauty of the human person, and she knows that it is good, and that every human being deserves good because she sees the bad. And I feel like this is the core of Lacie's character. This quote that she says, this first thing that I'm saying, is she sees the world as a good place because she knows the bad, and also because she has this limited timetable. So that's the first way you can look at it. The second way is the way that they discover at the end of the story, that what Lacie was actually trying to say was that the abyss, even though she was terrified to go to it, she saw it for what it was. And what was it? A beautiful golden light. Essentially heaven. Like the best of the best that you could get. And though she was sad to leave the world and all of the people that she knew and all the goodness that she knew, she also knew that that world was beautiful. And At the same time, the way that time works in the Abyss is a little bit different. I think she somehow knew that Jack was going to mess it up. Like, that he was just going to completely annihilate it. And I'm not sure if she has some way of knowing this, because this quote applies to what she's saying in this situation. That when Jack threw the stuff into the Abyss, when Sablier fell, because the reason he did it was to bring the world that Lacie loved so much into the Abyss. When he did that, he actually ruined the Abyss and made it a terrible place and made it scary. And I think what she was basically trying to say is that she remembered the world of how good it was, and she's going to miss the goodness of the world and not what Jack brought her. So she wants to see the beautifulness of the Abyss and the beautifulness of the world, not the two combined as a terrible thing that Jack was trying to do. And these two things, I think, are the core two ways of what she's saying, and are core to what Lacie believes. That she knows the good and the bad, but at the same time, the good always wins out. And I hope that explanation makes sense, but that's kind of key to who Lacie is. Now that we've kind of covered the Jack-Lacie dynamic, we need to cover another dynamic. The Lacie-Levi dynamic. And all of you who have read Pandora Hearts are hopefully retching right now because it's absolutely disgusting. Levi, as the previous Glenn, is now passing on his title to Oswald, who will become the new Glenn. And that's how the Baskerville name kind of passes down, is because of the Glenn title. And at this point, Levi is like, okay, Lacie's gonna be thrown into the Abyss. So, I have a proposition. How about we see what happens when somebody who's pregnant goes into the Abyss? That is what Levi does. Levi, who is this old, like, 100-some-year-old guy, impregnates a young woman, and it's disgusting. And there are two characters who I believe are unforgivable in Pandora Hearts, and one of them is Levi. Now, I can say that Jack started everything, I can say that Lacie started everything, but Levi is who started the whole Alice thing, and who made the whole Blood Rabbit thing able to happen. If Lacie had never been impregnated, and if she hadn't had Alice, then Blood Rabbit would never have existed, Oz never would have existed, as sad as that would be, and a lot of things would probably still be okay. And Jack probably wouldn't have gotten as far in his plan as he had planned to. And a lot of bad things probably would have not happened. Of course, there would still be some terrible things that happened. You would still have an obsessed Jack, which would be absolutely disgusting, and Lacie would still be in the Abyss, which is very sad. But if Levi hadn't done what he had done, then everything, I think, would have been a little bit better. I mean, we wouldn't have some of the characters that we know and love, but it would have been a little bit better. And I just think it's just absolutely disgusting what he did, and I just want to say, if anybody has ever experienced that kind of thing, I'm sorry, and please know that there is help out there for you, because what happened to her was not her fault. And anyone who watches this, if you've experienced some kind of trauma related to that kind of thing, please know that there are people out there who can help you, and you are not alone, and it is not your fault. Just thought I should say that, because what happened to Lacie was not okay, and what Levi did to her as an experiment because she was going to die anyway is just not okay. She deserved to just be happy with her life, even though she was going to be thrown into the Abyss. It wasn't a, okay, your life is over kind of thing, because we know that she still, in some way, thrived in the Abyss, because she did have 2 children, and as terrible as what Levi did to her, those 2 children are everything. if you don't know who they are, one of them is Alice, and the other one is the Will of the Abyss. She had twins. And as we know in all of these things, twins mean a lot in the series because, or at least siblings do, because a lot of these sibling things happen with children of misfortune being born, and with Glenn's happening, as we've already seen 2 examples of. That's not exactly the case with Alice, but she is extremely important, and of course the Will of the Abyss is important, because once the Will of the Abyss is born, that's kind of when the Abyss starts to get a little bit messed up, and she is very creepy. Just saying, I'm so sorry, Lacie, that happened, but Alice is amazing, and when she comes into the world, she really tries to make it a good place, and of course we know that she ends up accidentally creating Blood Rabbit, but Lacie sends these 2 bunnies out to protect her and to protect the Will of the Abyss, and one of them is Oz, and if Alice had never been born, then Oz would never have existed, and I feel like from the last video that I made, I hope that whoever is watching this and has watched that knows that Oz is an amazing character and has a newfound appreciation for him. And again, this is the reason why I said in the last video I don't really ship Alice and Oz, is because they were both Lacie's creation, one being her daughter and one being some semblance of her magic energy from the abyss, ? Anyway, in her short life, a lot happened to Lacie. She was stalked by a creepy guy, she was told that she was going to die, and was impregnated by an old man, and it was very, very unfortunate. And she did have 2 daughters, so a lot happened to Lacie, and there's a lot more that happened to her. She had an amazing relationship with her brother, and said to her, he said to her, I'm gonna miss you, and she said to him, it's okay. I understand that I'm a child of misfortune, and that I need to be thrown into the abyss, and I understand this is your duty. She was very understanding. They had a great sibling relationship despite what happened, and, her brother was looking out for her with Jack. I mean, they were friends, but he really tried to make sure that, Jack didn't do anything, and there's just so much in her character, and so much of it applies to Pandora Hearts. She's kind of at the key of everything. If she had never existed, Pandora Hearts wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have the tragedy of Sablier, we probably wouldn't have any of the characters that we know and love, and it would just be a very different story. Lacie is at the key of everything, and she shouldn't be overshadowed by Jack. And her very optimistic, beautiful view of the world, I hope at least some of you took away. And if you didn't, hopefully this video helped to explain how wonderful she truly is, how much we should appreciate her as a character, because Lacie is, as I said, the stars, the sun, and everything. She deserves it all. And she just always, whenever I think about her, makes me want to cry, because she had it so hard, and yet she still saw the world as a beautiful place. And I feel like anybody who's struggling right now should just kind of focus on Lacie's character and focus on what she saw in the world that maybe could be applied to your own life. Maybe it's just a simple, I see the world as a beautiful place because of this blade of grass, or because this bird flying overhead, or maybe I see the world as a beautiful place through this artwork created by this human, or I see the world as a beautiful place because of my family, or because of my dog. I see the world as a beautiful place because I choose to see it that way, and I want to see it that way. A simple wanting can go a long way, and we can see this through Lacie. She wanted to see the world as beautiful because of her limited timetable, and she did. And then she got to experience the abyss in all of its beautiful glory. and I feel like we shouldn't see her as a terrible character just because she's a child of misfortune. We shouldn't see her as cursed because of her red eyes and black hair. We should see her as beautiful because of all the beauty she saw. And I hope that this will help you understand her character as something not to be overlooked, just because there's an annoying stalker boy in the way. So I hope you all enjoyed this video and this deeper character analysis of Lacie. I do want to just take a few minutes to explain the difference between Lacie the character and Lacie the song. Lacie the character I have just spent this whole video talking about, but of course before that we learned that Lacie is a song. We first hear it when it comes out of the little pocket watch that Oz sees in the very first chapter, but it appears many more times, mostly with Elliot and Leo, when they are exploring the different sounds and they're experimenting. And Leo says that he wrote the song, but he obviously didn't. The person who wrote the song is Jack because of Lacie, and the song gets passed through the entirety of the story. The story starts with it and basically ends with it with the pocket watch on the grave because it is Lacie. And the thing that makes me amazed is that the story begins with her and ends with her, and that song holds her through the entirety of the story. Make sure that you don't forget her, and I hope that you don't forget her, because here's that theory. That grave that's at the beginning and end of the story, that starts and finishes it, is Lacie. The reason that they found the pocket watch on the grave is Lacie, because she is the music that makes this story shine. She is the beautiful notes that hold the story together. She is a song, but she's also a person, and she needs to be appreciated as both. So, I hope you enjoyed this video and this detailed analysis of Lacie, both as a song, very briefly, and as a character, a little less briefly. I know this video is probably pretty long already, so I will try to wrap it up as best I can. But before I do, I'd like to say, please, please, please like, comment, subscribe. The most important of these to me right now is comments. If I don't get a comment, I don't know exactly what to make. I can see likes, and I can see what you're interested in, I can see views, but I don't know what else you want. I can't keep making videos about the exact same topic. I kind of need to veer. If there's a specific character you'd like me to talk about, whether that be in Pandora Hearts, or literally anything that you see behind me or that I've talked about, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to. I do hope to eventually make both a Jack video, since I talked about him a lot in this, and a Gil video. And with the Gil video, it'll probably be a Gil and Vincent video, because you kind of can't have one without the other. So I'll probably be making videos about them. If there's anything else that you'd like me to make a video about, please let me know. I know that I've already made an Oz, and this is a Lacie video, as well as a non-spoiler review, and also a Christian imagery video. If you're interested in any of those topics, please feel free to watch those videos. They're there for you. And feel free to comment on those videos too. You don't just need to comment on this one. But please, I love comments. I love responding to them. Just please, please, please be respectful, and I appreciate it. I really do love to hear from you all. As far as likes and subscribes go, this videos and this channel cannot thrive if I don't keep getting subscribers and likes. So share with all of your friends about this channel if you enjoy these videos. Thank you very much. Last but not least, I hope you all have a great day and hope you enjoyed this video and any other future videos I post. Remember, look at the world as a beautiful place and look towards that golden light. Bye!